Approximately 15 million students are enrolled in an undergraduate program in the United States, according to bestcolleges.com. Roughly 8.6 million are pursuing a bachelor's degree. As of 2020, 63% of students who completed high school or a GED certificate entered college. Furthermore, as of 2020, 40% of all 18 to 24-year-old students have enrolled in at least one post-secondary program, which places an increased emphasis on transitional planning from high school to college if we are to ensure students' overall success and wellness, both from an educational and personal standpoint. Dr. Melissa Wicker is currently serving as the Assistant Director of Outreach for the Zarrow Institute on Transition and Self-Determination. In her current role, she is responsible for conducting custom training and personal development programs to foster long-term relationships with over 100 school districts and educational departments on a national level, which focus on individual needs. Wicker joined me this week to have an in-depth discussion on the importance of quality transitional planning, fundraising, and educational development to ensure that all students of all abilities have an equal shot at educational, personal, and lifestyle success during their tenure as a student at the University of Oklahoma. It was a wide-ranging discussion of tremendous value from an educational and lifestyle perspective. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Melissa, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you about your role in higher education. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for a few minutes.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, Melissa, in your current role, I know you focus on fund development. You also focus a lot on building relationships and transitional planning. The work that you do for the University of Oklahoma sounds fascinating. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about the great work that you do.
Sure. So right now I am the Assistant Director of Outreach for the Zarrow Institute, which is at the University of Oklahoma, like you said. So I do that outreach, and I also am the TAG coordinator. So we have an online assessment that helps create transition goals for students that are moving from middle school to high school and then high school to post-secondary education. Excuse me. So, sorry, for the TAG assessment, I manage the back end of that. So all of the purchasing, all of the invoicing, all of that. But I also do all of the training, or most of the training for different school districts and schools and teachers in general for that assessment, and then how to use it in their planning. I do a lot of work with our doctoral students. So currently we have 10 doctoral students. So I help them with their writing, their research, and some other activities and projects that they come up with. I get to teach some undergraduate students, pre-service teachers as well. But the bulk of our work is really transition related research. So I do a lot with literacy and transition, and then again, assisting the doctoral students with the different projects and research projects that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a large part of your work, Melissa, centers around building relationships and really fostering relationships with the different stakeholders that you work with. So tell me about the importance of building relationships in the work that you do.
Well, they're key to personal and institutional success. So as you know, for me, the relationship and that trust that has to be built between being a professor and my students, or being a mentor to the graduate students, or being just a member of the team in general, are really imperative. That way everybody can work together. But then beyond just within the college and within our institute, building relationships between, the researcher and the research participants and the research team, that trust is vital. Knowing that I can depend on you, you can depend on me, knowing that we have each other's best interests in mind. And then again, beyond that, even building relationships with institutions and organizations and school personnel and school districts. That's really, again, at the heart of what we do is building relationships so that we can help and support them in what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Melissa, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. Simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. And I, going through my own educational journey, when I was of college age, I know that transitional planning for students with disabilities is certainly vitally important to their success. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance of transitional planning, specifically for students with disabilities, and how critical you think that is.
It's critical. And even beyond students with disabilities, I think if we want any student, especially students with disabilities, to be successful after they leave high school, they need to have the skills in order to do so. So we do a lot with that transition planning, helping teachers see the importance of independent living skills, social skills, self-determination, academic, all of these. There's all sorts of moving components to that transition plan. And then not just the planning part, but actually teaching those skills directly as well. And then we're fortunate, we actually have a program here through the Institute called Sooner Works. And so it's specifically designed for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So they live on campus and attend classes just like every other student. And then we provide some additional layers of support to help with this transition. So they receive some person-centered planning and then some specific instruction on life skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that a big part of your job, as you said at the beginning, is fundraising, but it's also development as well. So I'm wondering how you strike a balance between the two, really raising money, but also making sure that the development piece is also taken care of as well.
For sure. So a large part of our fundraising is in the form of grant writing. So we typically write 5 to 6 grants per year. So that is a whole process in and of itself. And so it takes a lot of teamwork, a lot of intensive days, but then there's usually a lag in between that. In addition to the grant writing, we host a summer institute every summer that also is a fundraising effort for us. And so we provide professional development for teachers and other educational stakeholders that centers around transition and transition planning. And then development wise, going out, outreach, promoting what we do, encouraging people to utilize our resources, which are all free, making those connections. But it's really kind of hard to separate those out. I think one is extremely dependent on the other. You can't develop grants or encourage participants to come to trainings unless you've built those relationships and shown them that the work that you're doing is important and it supports them directly.
Yeah, 100%. And Melissa, I'm also fascinated to ask you about the process of outreaching to your different stakeholders, because not everybody operates the same way you or I might. So I'm wondering if there are any sort of principles you live by when conducting outreach, knowing that not the same shoe will fit everybody. So I'm curious about the principles of outreach that you follow, if you follow any at all.
Yeah, well, I think again that it's just back to the relationships. So listening to them and listening to understand what their needs are and what their outcomes that they want to see are, rather than just listening to hear and then pushing your own agenda. Valuing and appreciating where they come from and their experiences and their knowledge, and then using all of that information to find a commonality, some common ground that we can build on, so they experience growth, but they also feel like what they've done so far is validated and it's good. We just want to expand that information.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melissa, it's also important in my view, in order to make progress, you've got to have the ability to set goals and really challenge yourself to reach milestones of achievement. So I'm curious, in the work that you do, how important is goal setting and reaching milestones as well?
It's imperative to getting anything done, anything accomplished. Even like when transition, creating IEP goals, transition goals, there are specific steps and there are specific due dates and milestones to achieve along the way. So my ultimate goal for creating goals is really to improve myself and improve the lives of the people around me. So, making or having others help me hold myself accountable, collaborating with others, using the power of my network to learn from other people and how they manage projects, and how different perspectives might help me. And then, doing my research and making sure that I in utilizing some best practices with that goal setting, and then mentoring and then demonstrating that to others as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, you oversee the online assessment system, and I know that online assessment has really sort of evolved over the course of time. So what are your thoughts on how valuable the online assessment tool really is, and whether you look to get different metrics out of it that you didn't necessarily look to get out of it 5 to 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the TAG assessment provides assesses students' knowledge towards transition skills and abilities, and so then it provides teachers with transition goals. So the original one is the high school version, and it was developed about 10 years ago. And so it's been through lots of validations, and it's But as we move on and we've developed one additional one, and we're in the process of doing another one, the literature and the skills that are needed in order to be successful after high school are vastly different than what they were 10 years ago. So we're seeing a lot more of that social emotional part of transition planning and success after high school. So I think, when you're going through assessments online, I think a lot of them have their place, and but just making sure that we're using some that are actually going to do good for students rather than just kill time and not provide the outcomes or the information that's really going to benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Melissa, I know in the work that you do that multitasking is something that you do on a regular basis. So how do you develop a work-life balance that really works for you and really allows you to really reconnect with your inner self at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I think I still struggle with that balance a lot. But the calendar is my number one friend. As I get older and more things going on, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist anymore. So even scheduling time for my family and for myself, I think it's got to be an intentional act. And then delegating some tasks when I can. And again, coming back to that relationship and trust, that those tasks will get done. But then creating schedules and routines. So I schedule things at work. I do specific things that's on specific days. And that way I can kind of stay on top of the chaos that sometimes is when you get super busy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you just a quick story. So I used to work at our local YMCA here as the lead job developer for our clients with disabilities, and my boss's desk and my desk were directly across from each other, and I remember specifically I'd come to work one day and my boss had stopped me before I went in the office, and she said, you sent me an email response after 5 o'clock. And she looked at me and she said, you don't always have to send a response to an email when it directly comes into your inbox. It's important to strike the balance. So I'm still working on that myself, Melissa. So I understand that completely, right?
It's hard. I'm telling you, being able to turn your phone off and ignore some of those things that come in, and determining for yourself what's important, what needs to be answered right away. And then, what you can wait for later on. I'm glad that your boss said that. I wish I could hear that more often for myself.
Well, we'll put a reminder on your phone for you, okay?
Yes.
And Melissa, I know working at the University of Oklahoma, it's an interesting place to work because it's a dynamic institution, isn't it? So tell me about the benefits of working in the Midwest, and I think University of Oklahoma specifically.
All right. I think we have at the university an opportunity to really connect with a wide variety of people from different backgrounds, with different specialties. So it's really interesting to get to know the different departments on campus. I think I always find a new one every time I go search for something else on the website. So it's interesting to be able to connect and learn what they're doing and what they're working on. But as far as the Midwest, it's just an interesting dynamic. We have some crazy weather, which, that's always kind of fun and keeps you on your toes. But, I have to say the people, at least that are around me, are very generous, and they're very kind and very supportive. And so I hope, and I wish that in general, that more people would adopt that mentality of just being supportive and encouraging of one another.
There's a different level of Midwest kindness, isn't there, Melissa?
Yeah. It is. You waved to everybody. It's fine.
Yeah, and I shared with you before we started recording. I'm Canadian, so we over apologize for everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And Melissa, one of my final questions for you has to do with really being on the front lines of seeing the new crop of students entering college and really helping them sort of create a transitional plan that works for them. I'm wondering how gratifying it is for you to be on the front lines of really helping to mold the future of our next generation of leaders.
It's exciting. And it's an opportunity to learn from them just as much as we can, teach them different skills as well. We have, our students with the Student Works programs keep us on our toes. They're hilarious. They, give us lots of stories, and we get to live some college experiences through them, which is fun because it's been several years since many of us, since we went through the undergrad experience. But then, just even in traditional undergrad classrooms, it's interesting to see and learn their perspectives and what they know and what they value. And then working with pre-service teachers to be able to hopefully impart a little bit of information so that when they go out to their own classrooms, they can make just as big a difference as everybody else.
Yeah, and I've got two more questions for you. And the first is about educational diversity and resilience and how you think the two are not only interconnected, but how you think they can play a part to really forming the future of education.
Diversity is it has to be there for there to be any type of educational growth. We need different voices, we need different experiences, and not only that, but they need to be forefronted too. For too long, there's been one viewpoint, one way of doing things, and being able to think past that and incorporate the voices of people that haven't traditionally been heard, I think is imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Oh, I think in general, just that I had some type of impact on an individual. At the end of the day, if I can say that I made a difference in one person's life, I'm okay with that. Personally, I hope that my friends and my family think that I was present for them. So again, striking that work-life balance and making intentional time and making intentional connections with them so they feel supported. And then professionally, explore. I hope that the people that I come in contact with feel like that I encourage their growth and their exploration. And hopefully I made some, at least small change in a student or colleague's way they look at the world or the way they do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Melissa, I finally want to ask you if people want to get connected with you or the good work that you do at the University of Oklahoma, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, our website is Zarrow Institute at zarrowinstitute.ou.edu, excuse me, is a really great place to start, but they're welcome to email me and I can provide that for you, but it's mwicker at ou.edu, super simple. And then, reach out on LinkedIn or other social media as well.
Fantastic. Well, Melissa, I really want to thank you for your work in higher education and educational transitional planning. Your work in the space and time on my behalf this afternoon is most appreciated, and I want to sincerely thank you for being here today.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me and feeling that I had something helpful to offer. So I appreciate that validation.